Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Music of the Week. Only 5 albums, and there is a reason I'm only doing 5 albums. So the first reason is that Rich Brian's album was pushed back to August, so I'm probably going to be covering that then unless it gets pushed back again. The other reason is that one of the albums I was going to cover was the new Midnight album, Steel, Rust and Disgust. But when I looked into it after I'd listened to it, like the next day after I'd listened to it, I found out it was a covers album, and it was way too late for me to replace it with anything else, so yeah, you got a 5 album episode, so let's go through the 5 albums now. We begin with a band called Age of Apocalypse and their new album In Oblivion. This is a New York City style bit of thrashy, hardcore, punky, crossover thrashy, stuffy stuff. I'm giving it a B. I quite like that style of thrash, especially from that part of America, and it's got some really good stuff going for it. I like the instrumentation first and foremost, the guitar's really good especially, and I like that it leans more to the hardcore than it does the thrash, but still mixes them up well enough for me. I might like the band work as well, you know, they're all really good together, especially drummer Will Kamerman. I think he puts in probably the best shift here. Like, the heaviness he has on the snare is pretty goddamn impressive. I think the production could have been better. I don't think it's super unique for thrash, especially from a place that does thrash quite well, you know? I just think it could have been, yeah, it's very dissonant and heavy, but it doesn't really feel like it goes to many places. I do actually quite like the lyrics, though. I quite like the sort of attempt at a concept themed around existential dread and struggle that took a moment to get right. And with some sharp writing, I think there could have been a much better story here, but I like the main messaging as it is. And the structure was quite solid. It was really heavy, and the overall flow was quite good, and it makes good use of its time at only like 26 minutes 29 seconds. Yeah, it's a pretty goddamn good bit of thrash. I enjoyed a lot of the elements I heard from this. Yeah, just solid thrash at the end of the day. That's kind of all you need. I wish it would produce better, and I think it could have taken more risks with the actual like songwriting, but as it is, I liked it. Next we have a band named Florrie with their new album Sounds Like. So this is a bit of alt country, not from a part of the state you would expect to hear alt country, it's from Philadelphia. Give this one a B plus though. I quite like the instrumentation a lot. I thought it was really interesting. Went to some fun places. Like, yeah, there's really good guitar, like acoustic. There's good bass and drums, but there's also fiddle and 12-string guitar and lap steel, and it's really good usage of the country elements. And the band are all fantastic as well. I wish I knew more of who did what, but all I know really is that this is the main brainchild of the person who produced this album named Frankie Meadows. I hope I'm saying the surname correctly, or even the first name, because what should be the case C, but I'm presuming it's pronounced Frankie. I could be completely incorrect. But yeah, the band chemistry is absolutely top notch. There's quite a lot of members, and they all do a lot of instrumentation, but they all coagulate really well, and they don't overtake each other, which is really good in a style like this, you know. I do like the lyrics, but not quite as much as I like most of the other things about the album. There's good themes of, like, you know, being queer and like happy kind of queer, and they are nicely written, but I felt like it needed a bit more meat and to be a bit less repetitive. There's more music than there's lyrics on some songs, and I'm like, you know, Sharon proved last year that you can write a really happy, like, queer, positive leaning album and still include some really good stories to tell along the way and make it relatable. So I know I feel like Florrie could have maybe taken that stance. I do think it could have been produced a bit better. I think Frankie does a good job with the mix, but it really needed a bit of better detailing and it needed to feel a lot more cohesive than it does. I feel like it's a little bit inconsistent there. It does occasionally feel like there's too much being juggled and not enough being, like, connected with. That doesn't really make a ton of sense, but hopefully you got what I meant anyway. And pacing is pretty good. I feel like the first half is a lot better than the second half. I feel like the first half is more interesting, to say the least, but it's still got some really good moments the second half does. I just think it doesn't make as good use of its time as the first half, and at like just under 41 minutes, I feel like it could have taken a few more steps, especially near the back half, or at least like maybe place the songs in different parts of the album to make it feel a bit more experimental. But as it was for a genre I don't typically listen to from a country, from a city you don't usually expect to hear it, I quite liked it. Next up, we had the first example this year so far of me pulling an album forward from my catch-ups. The main reason being I didn't really know it existed until late last week, but it's the new album by Just a Mess titled Our Blood Oath, and it came out back in February. I didn't find this out until, again, like last week, and this is a band I quite like, and yeah, this one gets an A+. I really liked it. I think what I like most might maybe be the lyrics, because there's some really honest stuff here about, like, well, the main theme of like redemption and perseverance, because it's informed a lot by the lead singer having a really horrible car accident In fact, there's two things that heavily influence the sound of this album. Well, maybe more things if you count the political stuff that it sometimes has. But there's the car accident of Tony Sarlo and the inclusion of a new drummer. And this is the first full-length feature new drummer. I think they released an EP back in 2023, that new drummer. But this is their first full album with new drummer, whose name is Kyle or Kevin. It's Kevin, I think. But I really fucking love this album, honestly. I think Tony himself is probably the standout here. His, like, drawling but rangy, deep voice, I think, really sells how well he's, like, sells his emotion perfectly. He does such a good job of conveying all the shit he's been through. And I like that he screams a little bit more on occasion. This feels like a much more emo album from them. This is a pop-punk emo band, in case people couldn't tell. It leans more on the emo. I quite like the instrumentation as well, because it includes a lot more keyboard work, which was a really strong element of their last album, and I'm really glad that they lean more into it here. Obviously mixed with some really good punk riffs and really good guitar and bass. There's even more of an alt-rock lean, which is something I wish they tapped into a little bit more in All Things Beautiful, but I like that they lean into it here and make things feel a bit more grand in a weird way. Production's really fucking good too, adds a huge feel to the sound, does a great job of playing to the album's strengths, which are really strong indeed. And I do quite like the pacing and structuring. I do think maybe a couple of songs could have been swapped around. You know, I don't think the last track on this album should have been the last track on this album. I think it should have came in, like, maybe a third of the way through, you know, and maybe, yeah, it's a good opener. It's probably my favourite song on the album, but I feel like there was probably a better choice. I don't know really how else to put it. The point is, Just a Mess to open, they're one of the best emo bands in the modern day, and not enough people are listening to them. So go check out this album and their previous two, and possibly their EP. I didn't listen to their EP, but check it out anyway if you feel so inclined. Just check out Just a Mess. Just go check out Just a Mess. I'm keeping that in, because they're really fucking just a mess. Next we have the obligatory debut of the episode. We have a band called Lastima, and their first album, A Pain Bloomed From My Lungs. Now, despite the fact that they named that and that they play post-black metal, this is not a band from Sweden or the Scandinavian regions, it's a band from Philadelphia, which I found a bit weird, but I'm giving this one an A-. I thought this was a really strong first go for these guys. The instrumentation is really good, like, the heaviness of the riffs is solid, and there's violin. Like, I didn't think I needed violin in post-black metal, but can we get more of it? Maybe on the next album? I don't know. I like the more melodic parts as well. Production, I feel like, was a tad too scratchy. I will say it wasn't my favourite thing about the album. It was done by the band's frontman, Richie Devon. And I think he does a really good job with the mix, but it feels a bit too unpolished and it needed a bit more smoothing out in some places. I get that that serves a post-black metal sound, but I wanted it to feel more organic than it does. Structure was really good, though. I like most of the sound. I do think that there's a few too many prelude tracks. That it's got 9 songs and like 3 of those are prelude tracks, which is, well, it's more like 4 to be honest, and it's not really much of a good sign, but at least those prelude tracks actually kind of have lyrics and like something meaty on them at points, so I can't really complain about those. Really love the lyrics though. I will say my favourite thing about this album, it covers really heavy themes of like loss and generational trauma and cultural identity, but I think the best part about it, and maybe the best part about the album, is how unfiltered the emotion feels. I would say, even though I'm rating this album lower than I rated Just a Mess's album, I think this one does the emotional side of things better. It made me feel shit at times, you know? It's really fucking good writing if a debut can do that. And the performances are great as well. Richie is a really emotional vocalist, and pretty much everyone is awesome. I like the guitar work, I like the drums, I like the bass, I like what everyone does, and this was a really great first showing. Still not my favourite debut of the year. Seriously, it's going to take some doing to beat Grief Ritual's big ass debut. Holy shit, I need to re-listen to that, it's been a while. But for a first go, at a genre that you don't expect people to go for their first thing, and including a unique element and emotional writing and just really good work rate, yeah, heavy recommend from me if you're looking for a good debut. And finally, to cap it off, we have Sleep Token with their new album, Even in Arcadia. So, Sleep Token, people know them, this is probably the most anticipated album I'm talking about in this video. I'm giving it a B. I feel like it was more of their typical, really nicely done, sort of proggy, metal-y stuff mixed with R&B and poppy stuff. I like the band. I think Vessel himself is still a really good singer, and I like his charisma. He clearly has some. He's really good at telling a story, but I will say the lyrics and the pacing are my two biggest things against this album. I feel like the structuring itself, it feels like a whole lot of build-up with not much in terms of payoff. I actually think the first song on the album is probably the most interesting, "Look to Windward," because it's like a 7.5 minute long song, and it goes to like such great lengths, but it actually explodes near the end. It feels like it does something big. And there's not enough songs that feel like that. And as for the lyrics, I think it says that the themes are supposed to be like sort of stuff about self-sacrifice or something, and it reads like, I read the writing. It reads a lot more like a weird ass breakup album, and I don't know, just like this is a suggestion I offer in my written review. Just go full Bizarro balls out heavy with the concept next time. Just lean into like a dark fantasy, Souls-like style setting, worshipping the sleep god. Just do that. Just go fucking mental with it. Make a new like universe if you need to. Make a new myth if you need to. Just do something more with what you have. And this is only my second album by them. I quite like the previous one, but I feel like the shtick's sort of worn thin. But again, the band's still really good. Vessel is still a really charismatic frontman. I like a lot of the instrumentation because when it actually goes into the genty and heavy stuff, it's really good. But I actually quite like the pop and R&B stuff as well. I think that they put the styles together quite nicely, and the production is really good. Carl Bone, who I used to call Carl Brown for the longest time, I didn't know he didn't have the R after the B, so that's on me. I called him that for like a fucking decade. But like, Carl's a really good producer, and he brings out a lot in this band. He's just really good at producing British metal bands, it turns out. And, balances the elements as well as he can. I just think he wasn't given a whole ton to work with here. I feel like that might be the weirdest thing. This is a really long album at 56.5 minutes, but it feels so weirdly thin in terms of its meat, and I think that might be the main criticism levied against it. A lot of people have called this boring. Well, I'll say a lot of people, mostly Sputnik music, because you can't impress those bastards for money or love. But, just because something's boring doesn't mean it's bad. I mean, sometimes a super basic album can work, and I don't think this is the best Sleep Token album. It's only the second one I listened to, and I don't like it nearly as much as I like the last one, but, I still thought it had some really good moments, and I think it gets a bit too much hate. I just feel like it's a bit of a wasted potential sort of thing, but I'm really not doing well to justify the B grade I'm giving it. But, good instrumentation, good performances, and really good production as well. I just think there needs to be more meat to just go fully mental next time Sleep Token on the off chance that you're watching this. I know you're not. But, just go balls out fucking wackadoo, crazy concept album, Sleep God, dark fantasy, berserk, Dark Souls style. Souls-like style. Just do something with it more next time, please. Next is favourite album cover and favourite song. I would say they're both for the same album, that being A Pain Bloom From My Lungs by Elastomer. The cover's really good. I like that it looks like picture frame, but also there's something sort of hauntingly beautiful about it, like seeing a woman in front of a pile of burned flowers next to a grave, I think. Just kind of harrowing and really fits with how emotional the themes feel. And also my favourite song is from this album. It's the closing song titled Septiembre, which is like saying September but if you're slightly drunk. But it's a really great closer. I like the emotional heft behind it, and it's a really huge track, probably the best track in this band's younger life, so I think it's worth a spin. As for next week's listening list, we have Aesop Rock with Black Hole Soubrette, Civic with Chrome Dips, Garbage with Let All That We Imagine Be the Light, Indifferent Engine with Speculative Fiction, Novelist with Coda, and Samboy with Even Sad Boys Like to Have Fun. You have no clue how long it took for me to get through that last fucking album name. That'll about do it though. I'll see you all, probably tomorrow for the Go Home Show for you to the moment, and as always, shameless plug, if you have men's tag teams, women's tag teams, women's single stars, men's single stars, if you have people in 2K25 on the modern day consoles, on the current gen consoles rather, then please let me know if I can use them, because I'm still petting at my roster. I'm getting a crunch done on it, and I've got a shitload of work to do on some people. But yeah, if you've got people you're okay with letting me use, let me know. I would massively appreciate it. And I'll see you tomorrow and then over the weekend for more Like a Dragon streaming. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye bye.